Hey there, and welcome to the Ope-Eh three-way pro wrestling podcast. Beers ahoy, boys. Brandon, joined by Donnie and Pierce, as always. Fellas, how we doing on this lovely day? 31 days from WrestleMania 41,
Hell,
where
I
we're
don't
going.
know. Oh yeah,
How's it sound like I'm doing?
cracking a cold
Wow.
one there, boys.
Oh, did you join me in the cracking?
I
Are
heard
you
you.
cracking as well?
Damn right.
Oh, hell yeah. Stereo. I like it.
Yeah, not surround sound. Unfortunately, I didn't crack one of mine, but it feels like it's good beer cracking weather up here in Toronto. We're at, and I'm being polite for the American audience and you guys. We were at 61 Fahrenheit today.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a nice,
we-
cozy day in the city. Marta was
Yeah,
coming
like-
back from work, and so the patios were full. So
Like 20,
Nice.
20 Celsius? I don't really know
16 Celsius, but
that. I was
yeah.
close. I was going to
Yeah.
guess 15. So
yeah, there you go. But yeah, it's a good day out in
we are
Toronto.
the exact opposite down here.
We actually had a good little stretch there where we were starting to get a little tempered again. You know, the moods were elevating, and Wisconsin, Wisconsin, as many of the listeners may know, and just decided to go right back into tundra weather.
Right, but what if you guys had good weather?
I'd probably be wearing less clothing. That much I can confirm.
And that's why we're a podcast and not a live show.
This is why we're not on video yet.
Yeah, but that's a segue to what we'll be talking about on today's show. We're just doing a quick little hit filler before we get fully into Mania season. We're going to be doing a what if episode. So each of us are going to bring up an idea of what if something else did or didn't happen in the world of professional wrestling at some point, and we're going to talk about it. So that's the plan for today's show. Should be a fun one, should be a quick one, but in the meantime, make sure you're checking us out on socials. Everything's up on YouTube now. We're posting on Wednesdays, so after we're recording this, I'll be posting the episode to YouTube and Spotify on Wednesday night. So look forward to seeing that.
Am I back?
You're back. Yeah, you
Oh, hey.
disappeared. Yeah, you disappeared. Now you're back.
My internet decided to take a shit right there, so I apologize.
The last thing we heard you say was that Wisconsin was the opposite, and then there was a pause that felt like you had dropped off, and Brandon filled the gap quite nicely. So,
Well, I
I
appreciate
tend to fill gaps quite
Brandon.
nicely.
oh.
What? I mean, you know. Yeah, we carried the load there for you, Pierce. You know.
Well, I
but
appreciate it. Did you remember to plug socials?
Yeah, it's literally what I was doing when you so rudely interrupted.
Because
Look at this guy, right in wavelength.
Because I could fucking take. You know what?
Pierce, do you know what?
Oh,
You're right.
it's a direction you can fuck.
He was trying to find the
You know
button.
what? I was just trying to say you're right on time for your segment there.
Yeah, man,
Donnie, hit it.
Just wrapped up those, and now we go into
Yeah.
Stealing everything I'm supposed to say because of technical difficulties. God damn.
Well, I don't know when you're going to go away again, Pierce. You're giving me trust issues.
This is not my fault. My friend's internet. Anyway, on this day, 1995, WCW presented a very infamous version of its uncensored pay-per-view from the Tupelo Coliseum in Tupelo, Missouri. The opening match was a King of the Road match between the Blacktop Bully, Barry Darsow, and Dustin Rhodes. The way that this match was is that they were on an 18-wheeler that was like caged, and they had to get to the front of it. It was really weird. Both men.
Some might call it inventive.
It was sure. Both men were Blade, and WCW was very anti-blood at this time. And at the end of the match, Darsow would win. Both of them bloodied, and as a result of the blood, both men were fired.
Damn.
Jeez.
Darsow, I believe, would go on to be the Repo Man, if I remember correctly. And Dustin Rhodes, famously, obviously, would jump to WWF and become Gold Dust. And In the main event, Hulk Hogan would defeat Vader in a strap match. I kind of was reading up on this. It's a little odd. Neither of them wanted to lose clean, so Ric Flair ended up getting hit with the strap. It's Hulk Hogan and WCW.
How does that affect a clean finish when somebody not involved in the match gets hit with a strap?
WCW, Donnie?
Okay.
Well, and like, how does that not benefit Vader? Like, how does it benefit Hogan?
Well, here's the thing. WCW Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I guess.
Ironclad, if I'm not winning, I can say fuck this contract.
What brilliant foresight into that.
Talk to Easy E, Eric Bischoff.
Hey, man. Was it 82 days?
83 weeks.
Whatever.
You're close.
83 weeks. Conrad Thompson here.
I actually,
Sorry.
I like Eric Bischoff, but yeah, okay, yeah, it was a weird clause.
Eric Bischoff is a very brilliant mind, but he also had some very dumb ideas.
Yeah, maybe it's what he had to do in order to get him to come, but like, hindsight
essentially
probably
ruined
buried them.
WCW by doing it.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, very much a monkey's paw scenario.
A less good year for WCW in 2000. Bit of odd history here. Uncensored takes place in Miami. In the main event, Hulk Hogan would defeat Ric Flair in a strap match.
Oh wow!
Wow.
And life,
it's like poetry.
Itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do another WCW 2001. Monday Nitro has its penultimate episode. In the main event, Lance Storm and Mike Awesome, Team Canada, would defeat Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Haire, the Impact Players. And on the Raw side of things, Edge and Christian would defeat the Hardys to win the tag titles, only to lose them to the Dudley Boys later in the night. During both of those title changes, Rhino and Spike Dudley would make their WWF debuts.
Wow.
Shout out to all those people involved in that match and making their debuts and such.
Obviously, it leads to one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time in the TLC 2, so...
Yep.
But we'll jump ahead. 2019, a gauntlet match would take place on SmackDown to determine the number one contender of the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. Kofi Kingston would start the match. He would defeat both Sheamus and Cesaro of the Bar, Rowan, Samoa Joe, and Randy Orton. You'd think he'd won, and then there was no chance because Mr. McMahon would add Daniel Bryan, who was the champion at the time, to the match. Daniel Bryan would defeat an exhausted Kofi Kingston. You'd think it was the end, but this was Kofi Mania season. Obviously, this is just a bump in the road till Kofi wins the title at WrestleMania.
Some weird booking.
What an odd series of events, especially for Vince to kind of wise up and get behind Bryan at like the very last minute. 5 years too late.
As a heel, no less.
Right?
It was very much the second coming of the Yes movement, but for somebody else. Kofi Mania was special, man.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like
I started watching essentially again, so I missed that part of it. But
their match at WrestleMania rules. It's definitely worth looking up and watching. I mean, I had a buddy over for the Elimination Chamber that didn't watch wrestling, and he was watching that match, watching the Kofi's momentum and everything. He's like, I fucking get it. I understand professional wrestling now.
Arguably should have got on last.
Yeah, but I think the women probably deserved it. But maybe is just Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey. That's for a different time.
Yeah, at the time, I mean, Ronda Rousey's name alone could have sold that whole show too. But
yeah, I would say that match was a deserving main event. Maybe not in the form that it was in, but
yeah, Charlotte Flair
on paper,
Charlotte in the bank and got to be in the match,
just like this year.
Yeah, more or less.
All right,
but we're gonna switch to another woman. Happy birthday to, in my eyes, the person that started the women's revolution, and one of the most underrated and like most like unsung heroes who's rightfully getting her flowers now, AJ Lee. Hopefully we see maybe one more match or at the very least a Hall of Fame induction very soon.
Hell yeah.
I agree.
But I'd call that her getting another match more of a what if. And that brings us to our main topic today.
Yeah, it does. So we're just going to go around the table. Someone's going to propose a what if. I know I'm going to be doing a WWE subject. Pierce, you're still going to take an AEW one, right?
I actually switched to WWE. I figured for the first one we kind of go with the more broad, what we all know, and go from there.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
he says
I
yeah. Oh boy.
I might have caved and jumped into a. I had a good TNA one though, but I mean, I figured since we were talking about Paul Heyman, my thought maybe we'll save it for the next one. This might be a little bit of a spoiler, but I was of the opinion that if we talked about Paul Heyman being subject of maybe one or two, but I know he wanted to take the reins on TNA back in 2009. There was an interview that he did about it and his ideas. So maybe in the future that can be some subject of exploration and potentially dispute. We will see.
It could be. It could be. But for now, I'm going to put you on the spot and let you go first.
Well, fellas, since we're all sitting here with our beer, presumably, since I can't see you.
I got Coke Zero, but it's all good.
I've got a Yingling.
Nice. Lakeside Cherry Leinenkugels, fellas. What if John Cena were to turn heel in 2012? And this could have been before his match with The Rock at WrestleMania 28. This could have been directly after as a result of it. I know there's a lot of heat building on him, especially after his series with Punk in 2011, and for a lot of the heat that he caught, and potentially rightfully so, as Punk is making Cena out to be the New York Yankees of the WWE and of pro wrestling in general.
And don't forget the Embrace the Hate storyline, which only led to Matt Cardona being buried.
Yeah, almost literally. I mean, not so much buried as thrown down a flight of stairs, or was it off of a stage? It was off the stage, wasn't it? Much to the dismay of Eve Torres, who I think was there, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's been a bit.
He kissed her while she was dating Zach, so
Oh yeah. Cena's a lousy friend. Not really very loyal
for the title, like 2 hours after Ray won it. So
Yeah,
he was.
Doesn't seem like a lot of. Doesn't seem very respectful. There's a lot of these attributes that no loyalty, no respect. I mean, I can't imagine a man who swindles a much smaller man out of his, overdue title reign less than 2 hours after he wins it. That doesn't seem like someone who embraces the hustle. You know what I mean?
No.
Or the loyalty.
That's what I'm saying.
Or
just terrible for
respect.
Yeah, of course you have to add all three. Sorry. So, what if John Cena turned heel in 2012? That's what you're proposing?
Yeah. So my thought is what if that's actually what they went with? Because you had new stars on the up and up, like Ryback. Regardless of how you felt about him, they were trying to make something of him.
Also known as Rye Crack to Mark Henry.
Yeah.
Yes. As Mark Henry so eloquently put it at your meet and greet down there in Indy, you lucky bastard, Pierce.
This was actually after the meet and greet. Me and him and my roommate had just a conversation. We were just talking. If you ever get the chance to meet Mark Henry, do it. He's a fucking gem of a person. He's so nice.
Yeah, he seems like a very cordial fella.
So, anyways, getting back to on topic here again. So, heel turn, what? Like before the Rock match at Mania, or
potentially?
After? Like what? Let's pick a lane here to know where you would want it to be, so we could progress from there.
So I think you get smatters of it prior to you start to see things get more tinted as WrestleMania approaches, because The Rock obviously is The Rock. He was The Rock going in to his hometown particularly. He was, in spite of both guys being faces at the time, Rock arguably was a better face played at that time. And Cena tried to hold his own, right? Like calling out his promos and everything.
I would say Cena held his own 100%.
Right. But then The Rock is The Rock. It's kind of like with I drew comparisons to WrestleMania 18 when you had Hollywood Hogan and The Rock facing 10 years prior, and then Rock coming in as the good guy also. But you got to flex a little bit, no pun intended, flex Cabana. When you're going up against a Hollywood Hogan anywhere, because people loved him and people wanted to see him, be their hero of old. And
people were happy to see Hulk Hogan back in WWE.
Absolutely.
That was the biggest thing.
And same with The Rock too. Like people were jonesing once Cena announced that challenger was The Rock, who announced that challenge back just after WrestleMania 27, after Cena had been running his mouth about The Rock, and then The Rock's finally showing up and he's on a comeback. So people are jonesing to see The Rock come back too, because Rock had been doing the Hollywood thing for years by that point, and he looked like he was still in great shape. And he proved that wrestling with Cena at Survivor Series. But I think at some point you see Cena really starting to bubble, maybe after, probably would have been like right after Elimination Chamber, which I think was the penultimate pay-per-view.
Yeah, the ambulance match against Kane.
Yep, I think that's when you really start to see it come out, leading into a heel turn
So if he does
after he loses.
Yeah, so heel turn, say after he loses at Mania. So like immediately what would happen there is you would imagine that he would not have been attacked by Brock Lesnar.
Or maybe he would have been attacked by Brock Lesnar.
I would say he turns after the Brock match. That's like the tipping point. Because number one, he should not have won that fucking match. So let's just throw that out into the ether. It's a hot take, I know.
I don't know. It's that much of a hot take. You have a returning Brock Lesnar. It would make sense to logically have him. Yeah, well, whoosh.
I mean, you still get a vicious match. You still get a vicious match out of both men, because if Cena's fully embracing the hate and we actually get continuity in that storyline, which at the time I thought for sure Kane was going to push something out of Cena. But if that were to actually go through and you actually start to see a more hateful Cena really lay into Brock Lesnar, and Brock gave Cena every reason to be hateful anyways, because he busted his shit up on live TV, made him look like a chump. Like, I think even after that, you start to see, win or lose, you see a more vicious side of Cena. And this is where you start to see like how Cena, and I hate to cop off a CVV, but if you look at his interview and what his character was meant to be, no loyalty, no hustle, no respect, just does whatever he has to do to be the guy.
We get to see him in that singlet. We get to hear the Fear My Name song.
He probably doesn't win Money in the Bank.
No, he shouldn't have anyway. But
I mean, again, yes, but
I mean, assuming he did, you definitely do not get a 434-day reign out of Punk. That much I can tell you.
Honestly, him winning it as a heel would not be a bad thing, because then he probably would be the quick cash in and probably would beat Punk for it.
I mean, by that point, Punk's reign would have been around, 250-ish, 240 some odd days. And who was the guy
at that point?
Who was the guy who Punk's reign ultimately superseded, though? It was John Cena's, because Cena's...
Well, actually, it was Alberto Del Rio, but we don't need to talk about that douchebag.
I'm talking about, like, length of days reign. So, like, as far as the WWE Championship goes, I believe to that point, before Punk got to 434, Cena was at 380, which I think was...
He had 370-ish until he got hurt before the Rumble 08. Yeah.
Right. And that's where he had to relinquish the title. And I think at the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Piers, because you might happen to know a little more on this particular subject matter, But Cena had the longest WWE Championship reign of the last 20 years by that point.
By that point, yes, and then Punk hit 400, and then 370 was probably the second longest. I think was him and JBL tied. So
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I know Cena. At least he's credited for having a longer reign than JBL.
what?
But
So
I mean,
his first reign was 280. JBL's first only reign was 280. This third reign was like 370 something.
I could have sworn it was 380. That was a
It could
number
be
I remember
380.
being tossed around.
I think we're getting lost in the weeds a little bit here, guys.
But anywho, the match is significantly more personal than to John Cena, and who knows what that looks like for Bryan and Punk, both who are trying to build the case and try to change the zeitgeist at the time of professional wrestling being the larger than life superstars like the John Cena type and like The Rock, even where you have these guys who are not maybe not as charismatic on in front of a camera, at least not at a still, but when you see them go, man, they definitely earn their stripes and they definitely earn their checks. So what does that do for careers of guys like Punk and Bryan if you have a freshly heel Cena, which people had been clamoring for by that point? What does it do for Punk and for Bryan? Does it help their careers? Does it hinder them? Do we see Punk say fuck it and go on the accord of, well, this is still the fucking John Cena show and I don't have a chance to rise here? So
Well, what's the timeline for the heel turn? How long is he only heel for a year till Cena Rock 2?
see, in that case, I don't think that's plausible because like if you look at what Cena wanted to do with a heel turn, and this was him talking to Vinny at the time, being like, well, if we're gonna go with this, we are going all in. Like I'm saying, fuck it to, you know, the Susan G. Komen stuff, which wouldn't have been a thing, and depending on your perspective on it, good or bad, right? Like, don't want to talk too much about Susan G. Komen, but I have my stances with
I'm
that as
trying to
well.
get canceled, Brandon. You go to the next
No,
topic.
Yeah, I also say like the Make a Wish stuff, which is more relevant now. And
yes.
but anyways,
So that he certainly would have taken Make a Wish off the table. Would have gotten rid of all the sponsorships and partnerships and the merch sales to further his character and to explore this entirely uncharted realm. And who's to say, like with success, I think it could have gone past an eventual Cena Rock rematch that would have still happened at WrestleMania 29, probably under some slightly different auspices. But
I think if Cena turns heel, you probably do get the triple threat with Punk, just because then you get like a true babyface in Punk. You got the superstar in The Rock, and then you got a heel in Cena.
and
even that is
to
like a butterfly effect to what could have then happened afterwards if that hadn't been a triple threat.
I mean, with what we know about CM Punk and how bad his health was, there's a good chance he still leaves.
But it may not have been so bridge burny.
Fair enough.
well,
So
I think you see Cena probably putting more people over. I don't think he main events over the WWE Championship that much. Because let's go back past Elimination Chamber 2012. That Cena, or not Elimination Chamber, Extreme Rules. That Cena Brock match probably should have main evented anyway. But the main event of Over the Limit 2012, which is the next pay per view,
yikes.
is
that doesn't
John
happen.
Laurinaitis versus John Cena.
Yeah.
No, you can
Where
wipe that.
John
You can
Laurinaitis
wipe that
won
slate
that
clean.
match with the help of the Big Show.
I'm looking at this. It seems like maybe the match that would have main evented that pay per view is CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan then, but I don't think that's a main event match.
No,
That
I'm
doesn't
talking
make
about main
sense.
event for Mania.
Well,
No, main event for Over the Limit.
Oh yeah, main event for Over the Limit. Sure, like it could be.
Then they have No Way Out. The main event again is John Cena versus The Big Show. CM
Great.
Punk versus Daniel Bryan. Kane would have main evented that, which would have been much better. Money in the Bank.
Money in the Bank ladder match was the main event. So that would
That's-
I
probably
think
not
Big
have
Show was
changed.
involved in that too.
Yeah.
Right? Wasn't that the one where he plunked the case off the Show's head and then somehow it magically ended up in his hands?
Yeah, it was bad. And you got that dumb face. Ooh.
That was a great face. There's so many memes that I saved from that. Just that one still. It was a great face.
I mean, the rest of the year, I think, would probably go about the same. Maybe the Cena versus Punk match at Night of Champions has a definitive finish at that point.
So are we saying that, like, just in the interest of time to the discussion, if he had have turned heel, not that much would have changed? Because that's what it
I
sounds
mean,
like.
there would have been hopefully less Big Show. Because Big Show.
You can never have too much of the Big Show.
All right.
Well,
All right. Here's a good take. Cena wins the title at Survivor Series with help from the debuting Shield.
Okay.
So they work for Cena. Is this what we're getting to?
I think that would make more sense then. I don't think CM Punk turns heel at this point then. Unless they do the heel turn still and then they do Punk and Rock at Rumble still. But who's to say?
I think that's the whole point. It's a thought exercise.
Yeah,
It's a what if.
So like what are you guys thinking? Do you think that's the route or is it Punk still turns heel?
I don't think, like, if we're talking like the timeline where it would logically make sense for him to turn heel, like I think the build to Mania where he's the heel and The Rock is the face probably makes more sense. And then at that point, I don't think he should have been attacked by Brock Lesnar. I don't think a heel monster Brock Lesnar and a relatively recently turned John Cena makes a lot of sense. You probably have, I guess, because Punk was the champion, and you probably have Brock and Punk at that point, which could have been another way to shorten Punk's title reign, technically, if you think about it logically in that sense.
I feel like when you have Brock coming back, though,
Jericho is the main event still.
In any case, I think if you have Brock coming back, you have to run him against Cena. Like, regardless if he's face or heel, you can make Brock do whatever the fuck you want him to do. You can make Brock come back as, like, the Uber face or, like, the monster heel or whatever. Like, but you put him against Cena, who, at the time, is still pretty much the face of the company.
Sure,
like,
but Brock
that establishes
also
Brock.
fresh off of being UFC heavyweight champion.
Exactly. That all the more reason to put him in that spot.
I would say all the more reason for him to get back a WWE championship, as he's a legitimate champion.
If Cena's not this,
that comes.
He's not loyal, he doesn't show up as much, this, that, and the other thing, maybe just have Brock fucking squash him.
Yeah.
Run SummerSlam 2014 at Extreme Rules 2012.
Yeah. I think that logically, I mean, Brock should have won regardless, but beyond that, like,
so
I don't like
do you
the
guys
idea of
remember
lining them up
what
together.
The story going into Mania in 29 was for Rock and Cena? It was saying Cena's loss caused the worst year of his career, including his divorce. And, like, you know what would really make his year bad? If he just kept losing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was funny, though. That was so ham-fisted, just Cena's worst year ever. And he didn't go heel. But, now we have arguably one of Cena's worst years, and the fact that he has to actually, accept his age and accept his standing and call it a career. And now he finally goes off the deep end. But, I mean, I've heard people say it, and I don't understand why he's not saying the things, or why he didn't say the things that he's saying now back in 2012, because it all resonates in my mind with a 2012 John Cena.
I would disagree with you. By the way, like, relevant to this part of the conversation, a banger fucking promo by John Cena on Monday.
Yep.
It felt like he was talking right to you. He called me out for the memes.
You guys know that I was dressed. Both Marta and I were dressed as John Cena at SmackDown right before Elimination Chamber. I'm sitting on the couch watching John Cena talk about now I'm going to shit on the fans that are the Let's Go Cena, and I just felt attacked. I
Yeah,
on the
he called you out
couch
for wearing his merch.
felt violated, and I mean, I guess rightfully so by his standard, but yeah, it was a very, very good promo by John on Monday. And thank you, Pierce, I believe it was, for asking how he was doing afterwards.
Well, maybe I was a little late on that, but
Yeah, better late than never.
if for those who are on Twitter, we used to sign our names. Brandon still does, but I've gone up off of it. So
I did it that one time, and that
you've
was
been
just
doing it a little more than that, Brandon.
no. Okay, when I say things that might attract some heat, I'm putting the copper out there for the lightning that may follow.
I only sign now as if I'm having a conversation with somebody. Like
Sure.
NXT with Nadia,
Yeah.
shout out to him. Super good dude. Hope to meet you at Mania, which I think we're planning on doing that. But or JPJ or the Wells Mania podcast, shout out to them too, and their WrestleMania March Madness bracket.
Big Trouble, Ben Bishop,
and Ben
at
Bishop.
Mania weekend.
If he's there, I hope.
Dude, he's been glazing our shit up, man. Well, you've been glazing each other up. It's been a very reciprocal thing that I've noticed.
I'd like to
There's
think
a lot of love between a lot of love between you and Big Trouble, Ben Bishop.
But yeah, I mean, I think we get a similar talking points of Cena now as back in 2012, because he was getting those super polarizing reactions, as WWE would like to say. Oh, he's polarizing. No, he's just kind of boring, and we don't like it. So give us somebody like CM Punk who's not boring.
Definitely
I guess that's the thing too.
Definitely not biased, but not that I disagree. But
2012 CM Punk is a lot more interesting than 2012 John Cena.
But if John Cena were to turn heel,
then there's an argument there.
Then where does CM Punk go? Then what does he do?
Well, he gets squashed by Brock.
I don't know about that. Because they had a banger at SummerSlam 2013. They could definitely just do that match earlier, too.
We'll never know. That's the allure with this. You'll just never know.
Hopefully he would just go face quick enough to, get the League of Nations in there still.
All right, Donnie, what's your what if?
All right. My what if.
The League of Dorks.
Set the table, the appropriate setting of the table, the head of the table specifically. What if on the week of starting August 23rd of 2020, you don't have Roman Reigns return after the Universal Championship match between The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, and Braun Strowman, which was won by Bray Wyatt. And the subsequent SmackDown immediately afterwards, and this is more where we're going with this, don't have the ending scene be Paul Heyman aligning with Roman Reigns.
So are we saying, just for clarification, are we saying that there's no Roman Reigns at all? Because it sounds like you're saying that there's no Reigns following the match between Braun and Bray, and there's also no Roman Reigns aligning with Paul Heyman. So, is there just no Roman Reigns at all? Are we saying he's done, or does he come in later, or?
Well, okay, let's simplify it a little bit. Let's just say that, let's just say he returns and doesn't see Paul Heyman.
Okay. And he's not involved in the match with Bray and Braun?
We don't know that. All we know is that, because how did Payback go, right? So,
he comes out with the
contract,
that was Roman in the bank.
So at that point, I guess we'll start from the very beginning here. Is there even that rematch still happens at Payback, right? You still have, okay, but then it probably doesn't become a triple threat.
This is the thing. It's been put in by Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman that Roman was going to come back as a heel, and Vince was not touching his storylines. It was going to be Paul writing everything, right? Paul and Roman were going to be the ones doing everything for Roman. Without Paul Heyman, I don't think Roman comes back because he said he wasn't going to unless his character fundamentally changed. And as for what happens from there, I really have no fucking idea.
Okay,
Because
so if we go off that premise, where we just don't have Roman come back at all, then I mean, you immediately start with an extended Universal title reign for Bray Wyatt.
I mean, in an ideal world, yes.
I think
I mean,
Domino's Paul, they'd have to make a new face of the company, and at that time, who could it have been? Maybe you have Drew step up and become face of the company? Or do
Drew
you
already arguably was headed that way at that point because he would have been WWE champion, right? Because he didn't lose the title until
Elimination Chamber?
right, so that was much later. Um, he was already on his path. Unfortunately, he didn't get the audience reaction that he wanted, as we all know. But he was on that path to be one of the top faces of the company. Yeah, I would assume that's the direction you go in, right? Like unless you want to make the Fiend a very clear face, but that I don't think works.
Well,
So
I mean, the Fiend after WrestleMania 36, after the incredible Firefly Funhouse match, they did not really. It was a missed follow up opportunity. They kind of just screwed it. So, this is a tough one, Donnie, because without Roman, you lose 4 years of storytelling.
yeah, you lose the entire Bloodline story. You lose everybody that got drawn into the Bloodline story. You
I
now
don't think
have
Cody comes back.
you now have I think Cody still comes back.
yeah, Cody comes back.
I don't think you don't have Cody Rhodes in a feud with Roman Reigns, which now what? Like maybe he wins it a year earlier and beats Brock Lesnar for it instead.
It's possible Brock doesn't come back.
I think Brock.
Like,
There is no reason for Brock not to come back if Vince is still there and he's still making his money. I don't see a scenario where Brock's like, well, Roman's not here, therefore I'm not coming back. I don't think that that's
right.
likely.
But I mean, if Roman's not there, well, let's just say Roman's there, but he's not with Paul. I think Vince pulls the plug on the tribal chief thing way quicker, and then Roman just fucking leaves anyway.
I mean, there was plenty of opportunities during that tribal chief run where it's like, here's a logical point where he could lose. He as early as I would say the Royal Rumble, the first one, the last man standing match against Kevin Owens.
Mm-hmm.
They were saying that he was going to lose at day one to Brock
There was
before
that
he got
too.
pulled from the card.
And then you have Edge winning the Royal Rumble. He could have beat him there. I don't think Daniel Bryan was really ever an option to win that match.
No.
I think Bryan Danielson was going to go to AEW anyway. I think
he
just
was
wanted to
Daniel
really,
Bryan there, but yeah, to your point, yes,
for
the
all,
person.
yeah, I'm a mark. I get it.
Yeah. But so but there's many opportunities there for Roman to lose, right? He could lose to Brock. He could lose to Kevin Owens. He could lose to who did I literally just say? Edge. Yes, Edge. He doesn't have any sort of internal feuds, really. I mean, he could still have had the feud with Jey Uso, but you don't see main event Jey Uso, which, depending on how you feel about the current situation of the World Heavyweight title, might not be a bad thing, but that's a separate discussion.
Triple H, of course, correct, but I'll argue that later.
Yeah, that's a different discussion. You don't see Sami Zayn get a revitalization.
Not against Roman.
You don't see that tag match main event.
There's a possibility that Vince is still in charge. Like, this is like fucking a butterfly effect. You know what I mean?
I don't. Again,
Austin,
I'd like to keep it in like kayfabe storytelling more
Austin
so
Theory,
than like
Austin Theory probably fucking beats him for the title, and Brandon probably creams in his pants.
Austin Theory cashes in Money in the Bank and it could beat him.
I mean,
Like
I'll never tell.
technically, that's
Brandon, we
possible.
know how you are. You
But yeah, it's like it's a huge. There's a huge sequence. I mean, maybe Bray Wyatt doesn't even get fired because he doesn't end up having that really lame story arc tail ended
with
by that horrible match with Randy Orton, and then he never returned after that. He got fired,
Yeah.
right?
he had
Yeah,
one more Firefly Funhouse, and then he was off TV for
It
4
was
months.
pre-recorded. It wasn't even live. So like there's like to this one specifically, I know we were talking about John Cena's heel turn and we're like, well, maybe not that much changes. This one, like, there's a shit ton of things that changes. There's people that might not be fired, there's people that might not be hired, there's people that, you know, might not be champion or are champion a lot sooner. Like
Well, I feel like the weight
title reign of all time, like
the weight of Roman Reigns not getting Paul Heyman or not being on TV is the same as like, what if John Cena was never the guy to face JBL at WrestleMania 21? Like, it's literally the foundation. It's such like an what do you call it? Like a pivotal event where you have so much that unfolds as a result of that. Where if you remove that linchpin, it's a radically different picture.
well, Roman Reigns was the start of the cinema era, so to speak, and this
Are
mini
you
era
guys
of like
fans of the Sony Spider-Man animated movies? The
yeah,
Into the Spider-Verse movies?
I do. Yeah, I do like them.
It's a canon event.
Yeah.
It
That's
is a
all
canon
it is.
event.
Pull
Categorically
that,
speaking, yeah.
everything breaks.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, and two, like, I mean, assuming he didn't have Paul Heyman as a manager, that's one thing. But like, if he didn't have Heyman writing his stuff for him and the stuff for his family, like, it's one thing if you pull him Heyman off as a character on his own, but you definitely don't get Roman Reigns as he stands without Heyman writing for him.
We get suffering succotash Roman forever at that point.
Without a
Okay,
crowd,
so
you just get to.
let's flip it to the other side. What does Paul Heyman do? Does he align with somebody that probably desperately needed his help for promo relevance, like Ronda Rousey?
Heyman and Ronda Rousey actually wouldn't be a terrible
There
combination.
was a lot of people clamoring for that for quite a while during Ronda's run, arguably because she wasn't everyone's cup of tea on the microphone.
She had a few really good promos. Her first promo, like back and forth with Becky, was phenomenal. Of course, like Becky is head and shoulders above most people in the women's division or even the men's division when it comes to promos. But like Ronda held her own in that promo.
She did.
But
A lot of other stuff kind of was not as good.
Right. I mean, it's a matter of having one good promo, and then it's a matter of sustaining as well.
Correct.
So that's where you'd have a Paul Heyman come in, and if you think you're high at one point, you put someone like Heyman in to fuel you, and your rocket's off to the fucking stars.
Alternatively,
Heyman-
Heyman could
So-
already be retired at this point. Like you don't know. Like if there's not enough.
Paul Heyman is one of, if not the greatest wrestling mind maybe ever. Like he understands wrestling.
He's on a
to
short list.
that nobody does. Like in yeah, I'm gonna throw this back to 2006 ECW before he was unceremoniously let go. He thought in the Extreme Elimination Chamber CM Punk should win, and Vince thought Bobby Lashley should win. Out of those two guys, who really has the spirit of the OG ECW? Because it ain't fucking Bobby Lashley.
No, I don't know what they were going for with Lashley as the head of ECW.
I mean, current
But-
Bobby Lashley, maybe, he hurts people, but
Yeah,
hurts
there's nothing stopping him from hurting people back then either. It's a different.
But he was
kind
just
of an animal,
annoying baby face that nobody really wanted. They wanted the counterculture, something true to the original form of ECW in a CM Punk. And CM Punk and Paul Heyman both lobbied for it, and Vince told him no, and then Punk got eliminated first. So
back to this part here, specific to the topic before we go into our last one. Where are our high level points? We want to summarize what would happen if this alliance never comes to be. We probably
I think
get
Roman's retired.
okay. We get an extended Bray Wyatt title reign, and probably doesn't get fired the following summer.
Which I'm perfectly fine with. You also might see maybe some more life breathed back into Braun Strowman. Maybe they don't give up on him so quick. Maybe he doesn't go anywhere.
Maybe you get an actually good Randy Bray feud, but like, I think this is fantasy booking, but realistically, what they needed to do at Mania 37 is just do another Firefly Funhouse match.
Yeah, I see the reason why they wouldn't want to do that with it being the first big live WrestleMania again post-pandemic. I think another big highlight point would be I actually think Cody Rhodes probably wins the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 39.
Oh yeah, because who would he have faced for it? And that's another thing too.
My first guess would have been Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, perhaps.
Maybe.
Seth Rollins too. Maybe they could have run a series with Seth and Cody.
So
I think maybe you might also see the rumored Matt Riddle title reign or Rumble win.
Oh yeah.
It's funny. I was watching Marta and I were watching the Randy Orton A&E documentary earlier on this week, and Riddle was on it at the tail end because that was when they did like most of the recording around that era when it was RK Bro. I think Riddles would come back to WWE. I feel like he could even be a 2025 return potentially if he's cleaned up his act. I don't know, follow him enough to know if he has, but I feel like there's so many people in the company that liked him.
He is the current MLW champion, so
that doesn't mean anything. In fairness,
well, I mean, it's not like big bucks type, but it's
on Brandon's dreams.
Just ask. Just ask Stephanie Vaquer what being a champion in another company means when it comes to WWE knocking on your door.
Well, to your point, when it comes to like, did he clean up his act or not? So MLW is not like, super rinky-dink. It's got shows on YouTube and everything. And obviously it's been getting a little more traction because you have like, obviously Jacob Fatu is a huge name that comes from that organization. You got, Hammerstone floating around. You got, Dario Cueto, who's like an authority figure.
You don't need to list the whole
I'm just saying,
friend.
I'm just speaking to like its overall relevance. Like it's not like backwoods. Like it's not Defy, right? It's not like Crash, Lucha Libre, or like some other fifth, sixth rate promotion that you might see once a great. Like it actually has some. It has some legitimacy to it. It's on an upward trajectory.
Keep going.
No, just to the point. Riddle, to your point, I think 2025. If the doors open, I could easily see Riddle walking through because I believe he's also voiced some desire to ultimately come back. Which why wouldn't you, especially with how WWE is doing?
True,
right? But I think he's in a good spot. I think he's repping the company he's at very well.
Okay.
And I think there's a very good chance we do see Matt Riddle again.
Well, you got to meet him, Pierce, so any spoilers that he had?
Not really. We didn't really talk. I mean, me and him had a good conversation, but we weren't like, I was like, hey, I want to see you back in WWE. Me and him just, he's a super fun, chill guy, and I saw him also smoking a little reefer outside the hotel.
Big surprise.
What? No way.
He's
Pierce, come on now.
Super fucking cool dude. I highly recommend meeting him because he's fun. He's a fun dude.
All right.
Yeah, he's definitely like the Rob Van Dam of our era.
That kind of wraps up my part, I guess. We noticed that just the world would explode basically if Roman and Paul didn't align.
I think there's a chance the Netflix deal doesn't happen too.
Oh.
Yeah, it's interesting to think, like, who would have been as big a draw as Roman, all things considered, that would have escalated WWE to that point.
Good question. It's a good question. All right, Pierce, what do you got?
All right. What if CM Punk did not leave WWE in 2014?
He wouldn't have been embarrassed in UFC.
Well, yeah, but we don't need to talk. I want to just put this timeline.
Mickey Gall would be a lot poorer.
I want to put this timeline up to Mania 30. I really want to do a shortened timeline because
Oh, so we're not
CM
going to
Punk.
talk about AEW and his time there?
I mean, that's for another show. I really want to shorten the timeline. Because I think he still does leave later in the year, but I want to shorten the timeline to Mania 30 because
I
Punk
feel like you
leaving.
should have gone first, or after Brandon, knowing that yours is so close to the timeline from his. But keep
I
going.
was about to say,
Leaving.
there was a nice segue there.
Yeah.
Punk leaving at the Royal Rumble, or the night after the Royal Rumble, led to such a domino effect that changed Mania 30 completely. Because Punk was penciled in to face Triple H and win. Daniel Bryan was going to face Sheamus. I don't know who was going to win. Probably fucking Sheamus, knowing Vince McMahon.
Probably.
Yeah.
And it was just going to be the one-on-one match between Randy Orton and Batista. So, I guess, what do you guys think happens? Does the yes movement still happen? Does Bryan still somehow weasel his way into the main event?
I got to believe there's probably like a concerted effort on behalf of both Punk and Bryan, considering where they both came from and what they both represented. I couldn't imagine Punk being outside of that event, especially considering, right, he's CM Punk, like he is a revolutionary in his own right. Bryan kind of just filled the void more or less in that respect. Like you could have put Punk in that storyline too, and it might have even been hotter. Well,
So
no, because
I'll agree to disagree there because they thought that the reason that Bryan was over was the yes chant. And then they gave it to the Big Show to sell Big Show versus Randy Orton at Survivor Series 2013. And guess how well that worked?
Well, you know
like
what?
gangbusters.
Now this makes me think they should give the Yeet chant to Jimmy Uso, and we'll see if that works.
I mean, it was his to start, so
It sure was.
I would probably be a little bit more inclined to cheer Jimmy as a Yeet merchant versus Jay before we get too far down that rabbit hole.
I just couldn't help myself. I'm sorry. I
Anytime that
couldn't
you
help.
guys can shit on Jey Uso, you fucking do it.
I couldn't help
Hey.
myself.
I'll wait till
You
we're
could
done
have,
here, and
Donnie.
then
I
the
couldn't.
floodgates are open.
We were talking about people taking other people's catchphrases, and literally, it happened more recently too, as Brandon disclosed.
Anyway, I think you do get Punk Triple H. I don't think that they put Bryan in the main event. Like I think Vince is gonna be like, you're gonna get this and you're gonna like it. Even though it was 1,000% time for Bryan to be in the main event of WrestleMania. I don't. Maybe you still get that backlash, but having Punk gone, that doesn't open up Triple H for that match between him and Bryan. Which, I mean, sorry, Donnie. I think Bryan Triple H is the best Mania opener of all time. No offense to Bret Hart and Owen Hart, their Mania opener is fantastic. I think Bryan and Triple H is a little bit better.
It was good. I'll give you that. The crowd helped that one more so than it helped Brett versus Owen.
It was Triple H's best match in years at that point. Like it was the best match since he had the end of an era match.
That's true. Curious what
like-
this year's opener will look like.
Both of them, for that matter. I really don't know.
Keep going.
I mean, this is such a domino effect because then you probably get CM Punk in the Elimination Chamber, which he probably doesn't want to do. Like, I think he said that he signed for 3 years at Money in the Bank 2011. So I think he still probably leaves by Money in the Bank 2014.
You think he
But
leaves if he main events WrestleMania 30 and wins?
I was gonna say that would have Punk's
maybe
grievance
he
facing the
was.
Undertaker.
The biggest thing is that he also just was like close to dying. He was working on a MRSA infection, and the doctor at WWE was just not giving a shit. So it's very much like if he can get time off, maybe he stays.
I think, like, realistically, like let's put this in perspective. I don't know what CM Punk's thought process would be, but part of me thinks that if he was WWE champion off of a WrestleMania main event win and arguably the face of the company, yes, the health incident was very unfortunate and very poorly handled by WWE, but if he gets that figured out, I don't think that means he leaves. Like, why would you leave being on the top of the world? I don't get it.
I mean,
What if they lanced the
you
MRSA?
could have a great job, and everything could be going well, but if you're mentally just done and burnt out, you're gonna want to take some time off.
Yeah, but like that's not going to lead to him changing his realistically. I don't think he goes to UFC,
No, no, no.
right? I don't think he takes
Mm-mm.
7 years off of professional wrestling.
I don't either. I think he just takes like maybe a year at most and actually gets time to rest.
And probably
If he
comes
gets
right
that
back to
time to rest,
WWE, right? Like,
yeah, if he gets that time to rest, he'll be fine. But it's that's why I liked this what if, because Mania 30 shapes up to be a completely different show.
yeah, I
I
think
think you do get
sorry, the injury in conjunction with the other things is like the straw that broke the camel's back. Whereas I don't think his back would have been broken necessarily had he had other things go right for him. But he literally had multiple WrestleMania main events not go right for him.
so if we look back, 2011, uh, or Cena Miz. That probably shouldn't have main evented that show.
I would imagine that CM Punk was very frustrated at the booking decision for that main event.
I
If I
mean,
was a betting man, I would assume he would be very frustrated. Then, despite the fact he probably to my knowledge, he still got along with the Miz very well there. But like, I could see someone in CM Punk's situation getting very frustrated at the booking of that match.
he's coming off the straight edge society. He's one of the hottest heels in the company, and then he's just he gets a match with Randy Orton,
Right.
which is not a bad match.
No, it's not. But like
It's
the
fun.
stakes and the character investment, like I like the Miz. I think we all
WrestleMania
like the
28.
Miz. Like,
The Miz was not. I like the Miz. I think the Miz is one of the more underrated wrestlers in WWE history
and one of the most
because he's
professionally aware wrestlers in
Mm-hmm.
history. Like a guy who will do what I champion this with Seth Rollins nowadays, where like he's the guy that does what the company wants him to do. That is very much the Miz, like throughout his career, essentially, despite all the bullshit he had to deal with. Always doing what's right for the company, whether he agreed with it or not. So,
But
Mm-hmm.
but was he worthy of that main event?
I don't think
Probably.
so. I don't think so. But okay, so we have that in 2011. Then what happened? What was Punk doing in 2012?
He was facing Jericho in the middle of the card because Rock Cena,
Great.
Mm-hmm.
which Punk wants the champion to go on last, but that Cena Rock one should have main evented.
Sure. Then what
That's
happens
the
in
biggest.
2013?
He has the best match on one of the shittiest manias with the Undertaker. Realistically, that should have been a triple threat match. Punk should have been in that main event.
So,
So he always gets so close, but he's always so far.
and then he gets shoved in the
I
middle of the
mean,
card.
Punk said that he was lobbying for either a triple threat match, because I think realistically, the way they should have gone about that is have him beat Rock at the Rumble and then have Rock beat him at Elimination Chamber and then run a triple threat match that way. Or one
they
thing he was
almost
saying is him versus Undertaker, streak versus streak as a main event. That's even from a casual fan standpoint, that's a pretty cool match.
Yep. I agree with that.
I think WrestleMania 29 would have been sweet as sort of like a proto WrestleMania 30 kind of a main event where you have these two guys who are established like Orton and Batista were, right? Like, but you have Punk who's on the outside, and just due to the fact that he is trying to fight from the bottom just to crack the main event ceiling, like this is where he finally gets to do it, and he does it against two of the biggest stars of any era to show that he belongs. I feel like that would have been a great story to tell.
But
I mean,
at the end of the day, Vince never, most of the writers and Vince specifically never saw him as that good and that guy.
Probably also not the
So-
easiest guy to get along with at that point in his career.
No.
mhm. Well, by that time, he was probably already getting pretty sour, anyways, and I figured the writing was probably
I'm
on the
not
wall.
diminishing
Yeah.
his
He was
belief in
working
that.
constantly hurt. He was getting the well, you want pal constantly, and you know he had earned a Mania main event by that point.
Yeah, and one of
You
the
could
most
say he earned
talented
it by
wrestlers on the show too. We're not
27.
talking just storyline. We're talking like in-ring stuff too. He was very talented still at that point of his
Yeah.
career.
Very strong merch sales.
Yeah.
So
You
puts
can make
asses in
you can
seats.
make the argument that CM Punk is on the Mount Rushmore, and you could say that because of him leaving.
Whoa. Let's not get too carried away.
He's one of the
What are we
greatest
saying?
professional wrestlers of all time, Donnie. You have to admit it.
He's not top 4.
Wait, say that.
He is
say
not
that again.
top 4.
Who is on the Rushmore? Punk.
Yeah.
I'd say you could make the argument for Punk, but my Mount Rushmore is kind of weird. So like,
anybody
'cause,
can
like,
make an argument for anybody, but like
on my Mount Rushmore, one of the people is fucking Samoa Joe.
yeah,
so
that doesn't
like,
that's not a
Mm-mm.
reasonably well received Mount Rushmore. We'll say it in the nicest way I can. Like
yeah, I know. But I have I'm different. Like I have more.
I'm different. Yeah.
I just got another
know.
idea for
Shout out
another
to
episode down the road, maybe as we get into football season. But anyways, but yeah,
Well, you can't just say that and not tell.
well, I mean, maybe we do like a all-time wrestling power rankings where we each give our votes, and maybe we, if we get the listeners, hopefully, or the listening, they can contribute a listener vote, and then we just put together a compiled power ranking for top X number of wrestlers of all time. Like that sounds like it could be fun. But
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah,
I think
I think like to your point though, like he probably main events 30. He probably wins 30. Daniel Bryan just falls into the abyss for at least another year. It is what it is.
maybe you have a 4-way at 30, and Bryan's in there. I think Bryan should still be champ after 30 because there was nobody hotter in the company than Daniel Bryan.
I think a lot of that though was kind of like people saw what made Punk leave, and they saw like how he was underappreciated. And Bryan again was very much in the same vein as a Punk.
Agree. I agree.
Coming from the Indies.
Punk was in the company at Royal Rumble, and when Bryan did not come out at 30, they turned on the Rumble.
Yeah.
Yes.
When they knew Punk wasn't winning either, that was another big caveat on that too.
Like it's if like here's from a fan's perspective that like was invested into CM Punk. Think about it this way potentially, right? Where it's like you're riding this horse. Like this was you. Like you're riding this horse. You want him to do well. You constantly see the company's not giving him what you think he deserves. Eventually, you're going to jump on another horse, and that horse is probably Daniel Bryan, right? And yes, that ended up paying off at least, whereas Punk didn't. But like, I think if Punk is granted more opportunities at doing like the high profile main event things, there's less of an affinity to feel the obligation to hop on Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. But the thing about Bryan too is like it's hard with him because he's such a variable with him that factors in with that a lot is the fact that he outside of WWE, and this is true of him since he came into NXT, was easily one of the greatest wrestlers in the world. Like, and we talk about Meltzer and the credibility of his opinion, but when you're rated, best wrestler in the world, like however many years in a row against all this competition, from bigger leagues, from like, WWE, obviously,
Well,
TNA as a secondary in the 2000s.
Respectfully, Meltzer would never put a WWE guy at the top of his list if he had any, ability not to.
Well,
But I guess, right.
they named their technical wrestling award in the Observer the Bryan Danielson Award. So
I'm not saying he was not deserving, but like to the bias's point, like how many 5-star matches did WWE get in a 20-year span? Like 2.
Yeah, that might be generous.
Yeah. So like,
But no, I mean, either way, man, Brian, I feel like was like Punk, one of the harbingers of the new era of professional wrestling. Like, gone are the days of like the showboats and like, I mean, maybe not so much when you have guys like Roman Reigns that are involved, the larger in life personalities, and like John Cena, we were talking about him. Him and Brian had a little thing too, where they're very much like emblems of their respective what do you want to say, their respective mantras or their respective eras, where Brian was very much the part of the in movement, the in trend of wrestling at that time.
Pierce, did you want to add
And
anything
so,
else to
yeah.
this idea?
no, I think we kind of nailed it. So
All right. Well, that's all 3. How'd you guys feel about those?
How do
I
I
think
feel
they're
about
fun.
it? I like, yeah,
Fun topic.
I like doing a bit of fantasy booking, and there's always little things like what's his nuts never got hurt, or like what if this person made the jump at this time when it might have been profitable for them, or what if they took a chance on this? I think it's always fun to think. I think it flexes your muscles as a fan as well, just to get you thinking
To our
about all the
listeners, we didn't
things that.
really vet these. Well, I had said what mine was going to be, but I had no idea what you two were saying, and I had a working idea of what one of you was going to say, and then you didn't say it. So it's kind of
You're
going
welcome.
blind on your guys' points, but
You're welcome.
thanks. Yeah, I mean,
We
it wouldn't hurt to know what we were going in with. I think from like how the dialogue was going, like to know what each of us were going to talk, so we could like I was like literally like googling shit while you're bringing it up. So like, oh, I need to remind myself what the timeline is here, so I can speak to it. Maybe we also have yours in the middle, like I said, Pierce. But nevertheless,
Work in progress. If we'd make this a series, we'll clean it up.
all right. Well, if you listen to the show, please tell us what you thought of this and if there's a topic that you would like to see discussed as a what if scenario.
Oh yeah.
Next week.
I told y'all on the reel.
Next
Sorry.
week, we've got our kickoff to WrestleMania is officially in swing since we'll be less than a month out at that point. That'll be all of our podcasts leading up to WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas. And what are we starting with?
Rivalries. The greatest WrestleMania rivalries. And we're each going to have one, and we're going to round table from there.
Cool. That'll be next week. Then we have our happy hour with JPJ the week after.
Very excited for that one.
And after that, we'll probably have a pretty strong idea of what the majority of the card is going to be. So perhaps we get into some. Where does that put us on the calendar? That puts us to the this 9th of April. That's like basically a week out. So that's basically like talking about the build, essentially, I guess, more or less. And then we get into predictions maybe while we're in, or maybe we do predictions on the 9th even, if we can't do one live in Vegas.
Oh, we'll figure it out. While we're in Vegas, I'll have a little interview mic. Maybe we'll do some interviews. We'll meet up with some other creators, quote unquote. We're not huge creators, but
we are
on the
creators.
technicality, we are creators.
Elbows will be rubbing. That much is for sure.
We'll probably meet up with JPJ. I want to meet up with Najee. So we'll go from there. It should be a fun month leading into Mania.
Hell yeah.
I'd even love bumping into Steven Larson if they were there. Fellas from Going and Raw. They're pretty chill guys.
Gotta find out when they're going to WWE World. It's probably the easiest, or WrestleCon, one of those like two setups. Otherwise, like the fixed places where you know they're gonna be and when they're gonna be is probably the easiest. Because outside of that, they could be fucking anywhere.
Yeah, you're right.
That is accurate.
So
The odds
All
are
right.
in our favor.
yeah. You want to send us home, Pierce?
Brandon, you got anything else you want to say before you?
Well, nah.
Are you sure?
Okay.
Are you sure?
Oh, are you trying to encourage this little thing you were mentioning about? Well, there was a TNA pay per view
Yeah, you can take a couple
last
minutes.
Friday.
Go for it.
Think
Couple
we get it.
minutes.
Oh, no, I mean, nothing too consequential for the WWE realm of things. I mean, Jeff Hardy lost a banger of a ladder match against one Moose, who
Moose.
claims to be the most dominant X Division champion of all time with this victory. Arguable, but what else do we get
Did Cora
here?
Jade participate on the card? Because there was that injury. I didn't
Yeah,
follow.
yeah, she did. She did have a match against Masha Slamovich. It was actually pretty good.
Okay.
She didn't win. She
Yeah,
didn't win,
that's not
but
surprising.
Did a destroyer on the apron,
yeah,
though. That's pretty
Okay.
cool.
sure
Hell
did. Yeah, spiked it. Yeah. Tessa Blanchard won her match.
Yeah. Okay.
Waiting for the I was waiting for a reaction.
Okay.
Don't care.
Okay.
Mance Warner beat Sammy Callahan in a street fight, and I wish I had a Scott Steiner button for Sammy Callahan because woof. But Mance Warner got a staple in the dick, and he also got his tongue stapled to a turnbuckle, so that was something, I suppose.
Ouch.
Yeah, good old Mance Warner repping GC Dub. They're building Santana from the Proud and Powerful to seemingly be the face of the company now that Josh Alexander's not there.
Okay.
Mustafa Ali is actually developing into a pretty decent heel. And looks like they're building a program with these two fellas. So banger of a fucking match that was. Wes and his fellas lost to the Rascals and their fella in Ace Austin. Banger of a fucking match.
That's not surprising.
Not at all. No, Ace Austin. If they don't make him like top guy in the company here soon, they don't know what the fuck they're up. And then obviously the Survivor War Games series cage match was won by Team Hendry. But, and I hope this doesn't interrupt a potential for Axiom Hardy's round 2, but Ryan and Nick Nemeth both attacked the Hardys. Nick Nemeth is now officially a heel in TNA, and it seems like they are after tag team gold. So we shall see how that progresses.
Funny enough, like you bring them up, that's actually one of the shows I'm considering going to in Vegas. That's a bit more like off the map.
What's that?
Nick and Ryan Nemeth are
Comedy
doing
show?
a comedy show on the
Oh,
Thursday
I
night.
thought you were going to say Unbreakable. You got my hopes up.
No, sorry, bud. No, I think they're doing like Hunkamania, and I was looking at the special guests for
Oh,
that
sure.
show. There's a pretty strong list of special guests, and it's in Fremont, which Marta loves going there because she gets to be a DGen. So I could see us making an appearance at Hunkamania during WrestleMania weekend.
DJ's Ahoy.
But
That sounds fun.
good show, all in all, though.
Yeah, I would say it wasn't bad. I mean, it certainly lived up to a pay-per-view where they could justify selling extra tickets for it. So good on TNA for continued upward mobility and success. So hoping Unbreakable lives up to a WrestleMania weekend caliber show. Because I mean, the pay-per-view in and of itself is legendary, right? For the AJ and Daniels and Joe match. So I'm hoping they bring out all the stops.
And when's
on
that
that Thursday?
pay-per-view? It's a
April
Thursday as well.
17th.
Yes, it's a Thursday as well.
It is.
So I guess they
Yep.
do the show. Do you know where is the TNA pay-per-view? I know it's in Vegas. But do you know like the
It is
venue?
in Vegas. Yeah, I'm checking that right about now. Bop-a-da-boop, bop, bop. It is in the Cox Pavilion.
Okay. Yeah, I know where that is.
So
I don't.
yep.
That's okay.
I'll
You've
be
never
at-
been there. I've been there I've been to Vegas like 9 times. So
I'll be at Bloodsport that night. So I'll be not front row, but 3 rows from the back, where I'll see Pete Dunne and Natalia doing Bloodsport things,
hell yeah.
and Zack Sabre
That's the
Jr.
stuff.
I'm most excited for Zack Sabre Jr. in Bloodsport. Let's be honest.
All right.
Yeah, Zack Sabre Jr. will be bending.
I think that covers everything though. Now we got the TNA piece in. So
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for humoring me.
Here's
You're
the
welcome.
done.
As always, thanks for stopping in the Ope 3-Way. Have a beer on us. Have a good night.